Howdy Beans, and welcome back to the Howdy Beans podcast. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. I'm your host, Luke, or as I am known in the Halo universe, Spartan626. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. As per usual, today we're going to be looking into Hunters in the Dark by Peter David. This is a continuation of my Road to Halo Infinite series. But before we get into all of that, I want to do a bit of housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean, especially when we're talking about Halo. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter, now known as X, at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify, on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. Good, fantastic, brilliant, let's go. So, as I mentioned, this is the continuation of my Road to Halo Infinite. For anybody who doesn't know, for anybody who's jumping in to this episode, basically, this is a series where I've decided that I have no idea what's going on in Halo Infinite. I played the first hour, I'm completely confused, and I just stopped playing. It's the first Halo game I've ever done that with. And what I decided to do was, because 343 has put a lot of weight onto their extended media, into the books, into the comics, into all the other stuff. So if you want to understand what's going on in their games, you have to read the external stuff. That I thought, you know what, I'm going to put their money where their mouth is. And I'm going to go and read the books. And that's what I'm doing. So the last one I did was Halo Old Blood, New Blood, I think it was, which is really, really good. It was like a Halo 3 ODST sequel, which I absolutely love because I love ODST. I love that game. And today is the continuation of that. So today, like I said, we're looking at Halo Hunters in the Dark by Peter David. As for the book's synopsis, so it goes like this. It is 2555, more than 2 years after the Master Chief went missing in action, following a decisive conflict on Installation 00, the Ark. The massive extragalactic forerunner construct known as the Ark, as part of the final chapter in humanity's bloodthirsty year of struggle against the overwhelming forces of the Covenant. Now, as a tumultuous peace exists between the humans and the elites, a startling scientific discovery is made, and the riddle behind its forerunner origins could very well seal the fate of the entire galaxy within a matter of weeks. In order to unravel these dangerous secrets, a heroic, hastily formed coalition of humans and elites must attempt to overcome their differences as they embark on a Covenant covert mission back to the Ark, an astonishing, enigmatic place beyond comprehension from which few have returned and where mortal danger awaits them at every turn. So that is a synopsis for it. As for my first impressions, I'm about 70 pages in out of like 362, I think. I will admit, the beginning was quite boring for me, and because a lot of the beginning was just set up, getting you introduced to one of the main sort of scientist sort of characters in the story. And it took a bit of while to kind of get me interested. I kept nodding off, falling to sleep because I read at night. One thing that I like to do to kind of help me kind of nod off is I like to read for an hour or two, and that really helps me kind of drift off. Otherwise, I'm up all night, and I'm in bed. And as I'm reading this, I'm just like nodding off really quickly. But don't let that sort of put you off. For me, it got me sort of a bit tired, but as the story goes on, it's gotten to a point now where it's a lot more interesting. More things are happening. We're getting introduced to the Senhili and the Arbiters there, and he's got his group of people that he's setting up. And basically, what the story entails so far, what I can tell it tells so far, is the fact that they found a brand new Halo ring. And they're on the Halo ring, and all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, the Halo ring has started to boot up. And what that means is the fact of the Halo rings were built by the Forerunners, and that they were built in as a countermeasure, so that if the Flood finds a way to kind of take over the universe and spread, that the Halo rings would go off and they would cleanse. And what I mean by cleanse, they don't just kill the Flood, they kill all sort of living life. And this is what the big sort of plan that the Forerunners had, was like a way to get rid of the Flood was to get rid of its food source, which was everything else. And it kind of, I don't want to go into spoilers, but it kind of links into the idea of what happened with the other Halo rings, and this whole idea of, well, it's kind of like a fail-safe. Like if one ring goes off but doesn't go off, like that starts a chain reaction where it'll go to another ring, and then to another ring, and then to another ring. And the whole story is trying to figure out as to why this Halo ring has turned itself back on, and why it's designed the way it is, and why they can't figure out a way to turn it off. Why they've only got a certain amount of time to really save the day. So that's what they've got to go back to the Ark. The thing is, they haven't been back to the Ark since the end of Halo 3. Since the end of Halo 3, they all left. The Covenant left, the Sankila left, the humanity left, all sort of species left the Ark, and they've got to make their way back there. The problem is that they have sent research teams and probes to the Ark since leaving, but all of them have gone missing. They haven't heard anything from them. And so that's where the intrigue is for me. It's like, it's really interesting to figure out as to why, what's going on in the Ark, what's happened there. Now, granted, hindsight being what it is, I've played Halo Wars 2, so I know who at that point in the timeline, who is on the Ark. It's the Banished. I don't know if the Banished show up in the story because I haven't got that far, but it would make sense if it is the Banished, or maybe it's something else. I don't know. But also, this one thing I love about this book is that it also talks about the Spirit of Fire. The Spirit of Fire is the UNSC frigate ship that you went missing during the events of Halo Wars, the first one. So, and then obviously in Halo Wars 2, they play a big part in that story. So I don't know if that team will come up into it, if it links into that. I'm not sure, but I'm here for it. I'm excited to see a continuation, to see if it links in to even some bit to Halo Wars, because I feel like that story, those characters, I've really forgotten. And to be honest, in all fairness, Halo Wars is kind of a niche part of the series. Like, unless you like sort of tactical sort of gameplay, you probably have never played Halo Wars, and it's fine because most people haven't. But Halo Wars was really, really good. Halo Wars 2 was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Not as much as Halo Wars 1, but I still pretty much enjoyed it. But I like that continuation. I like how it links it in, and we get to go back to the Ark, and we get to see how the Ark has changed. And also, you've got the first proper sort of moment where you've got Spartans and humanity with elites from St. Helios, where they have to work together, and that you have both sides that are still a lot of tension. Is the fact of, because like there's this one point where you've got this one elite called Ulysses, where he's talking to the Arbiter, and he's like, look, I don't mind going and working with the humans, but how do we know there's no threat? And the Arbiter's like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, in all fairness, we glassed their planets. We destroyed their homeworlds. They have a right to hate us, and for fair reasons. And the Arbiter's like, look, I promise you, these are people who are trying to save the galaxy, trying to save the universe. You're not going to have any problems. Of course, there's going to be problems. Of course, there's going to be tension because you're going against other Spartans. You're going against other humans. There's going to be people that don't like the elites, and again, for good reason. So I'm interested in that dynamic. Are we going to explore that? Are we going to explore, the real sort of tension between humanity and St. Helios, and to see what's going on with the Arbiter, to see what's going on with this universe now that the Master Chief is gone, this sort of pinnacle archetype of humanity, really the beacon. Now he's gone. What is going to happen with this story and these characters? So I'm excited to go into it. It's starting to pick up, which I'm glad for, because again, I was worried at the beginning. I'm like, oh God, please don't be another Glasslands. Please don't be boring all the way through. But it wasn't. It was just, once you get the beginning out of the way and you start introducing a lot more characters, and you get to St. Helios, and you meet a lot of these characters, and you realize as to what's going on in the story and the whole sort of plot, shall we say, it starts getting interesting. So I'm really, really excited for that. Before I go off into the book review, one thing I want to say as well is, like, thank you to everybody who listened to my last Halo book review. It is not only my most successful Halo video, but it's also my most successful book review. Currently, it's at 25 downloads on Spotify, which is absolutely incredible. So thank you for everybody who listened to it and enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys have continued and come back for this one, and come back for the rest moving forward. And if you're new, please stick around and stay. But I just want to say thank you, because it means a lot how, like, that episode was so successful. And I'm really hoping that this one is really successful as well, because before this one, my most successful book review was a Doctor Who book. So I'm glad that other ones have been successful as well, and people are liking the book reviews. So that's really good. But yeah, I'm going to go off now and finish this book, and then when I come back, I'll give you my first impressions, story details, any sort of continuity, and then my overall thoughts. So until then, I will see you all on the other side. Right, and welcome back, everybody. So, this book took me a lot longer to finish than I first initially thought it would do. And it's not because it was bad or not because I didn't enjoy it. Actually, far from it. I actually really, really enjoyed myself here, which I'll get into in a minute. But when I first started this book, things started to get really, really busy in life and in work. And by the time I'd find the time to sit and actually read the book, I'd get home and I'd be so tired and exhausted. I would read 2 to 3 pages, and then I'd probably just pass out and fall to sleep, or I'd have to put it down and come back to it later. So it took me a lot longer to get through it than I had hoped. But overall, my first impressions are it's really, really good. It didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Like in the sort of introduction, I mentioned that I had hoped that it would go in the route of sort of Halo Wars 2, that we would see some brutes and like the Banished and like the continuation of that story. But it doesn't go there. It actually goes in a quite surprising way. And I really enjoyed myself here. More so for the character interactions, like the lore. I'll get into the sort of how the book can continuity and the timeline and all that a little bit later. But the lore in itself and how it expands on the Ark and it expands on Halos and the Forerunners and the AI, the monitors that the Forerunners left to monitor, the Ark and monitor the Halo rings and to make sure that they stay operable just in case the Flood return. In all of that, I love the extended lore. I thought that was absolutely fascinating. But the parts that I appreciated the most, and actually really goes down to the author, Peter David, of how brilliant his dialogue is just the moments between the humans and the Sankheili. Because where this book takes place, it takes place basically not about, I think it was about 2 or 3 years after the events of Halo 3. So tensions are still in the air. There's 30 years of bodies between the humans and the elites because of the Covenant War. And for that, there are a lot of Spartans and a lot of humans that don't like the elites. And there are a lot of elites that don't like humans. So there's a tension in the air. So there's a lot of dialogue and there's a lot you can explore with that. And the book does explore, the relationships that you do have some elites that are trying to, that feel sympathy for the humans and want to sort of come together peacefully and work together. And then you get some humans where they have, for good reason, don't very much like the Sankheili and want to get rid of them all. So that was quite interesting. That was fascinating. And the evolution of the characters, of how they sort of get to know each other and respect each other as the story goes on, as they go through sort of equal amounts of struggle, which they share in this struggle, that in this story. Whereas they go through that, you get a lot more of these sort of really deep sort of character development moments, and I really loved and appreciated for that. So overall, my first impressions, it does everything that I wanted it to do and more. And I would say right now it's at a 4 out of 5 star. And the way my grading is when I grade sync in terms of the stars, 5 being exceptional, like being like brilliant, like change your life, sort of really incredible all the way through. A 4 is great. 4 is still pretty good. I'd still eat at a 4-star restaurant. A 3-star is good. It's average. It's very middle of the road. It's good, but it's nor great nor is it brilliant, like or bad. It's just good. A 2 is meh, sort of like it is what it is. And then a 1 is just like don't bother. So I would say this is still a great read and still very much enjoyed it for sort of the character development and the lore and the way it expands and sort of the moments between Olympia Vale and the monitor of the Ark. That was incredible. Those are my favorite parts of the whole story, to be honest. Their back and forth was really, really great between AI and humans, and that you have this AI that has been left on its own for millennia. It's been hundreds and thousands of years. It's been left on its own, abandoned by the Forerunners, and it's just gone insane. And like it just sees humans as a disease. It sees humans and Sankheili and all sort of living life as basically a disease, and that they're destructors and they need to be dealt with as much as the Flood needs to be dealt with. But I'll sort of get onto that bit in a second with the story. But yeah, first impressions, brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it. It's a great read and I do recommend it. As for the story, So the long and short of it, I'm going to stay away from sort of spoilers. But the long and short of it is the fact of humanity has found another Halo ring. And they're doing sort of research as they would on all the other Halos. And all of a sudden, it turns itself on and it starts counting down. And it's like, well, hold on a second. How's it turned itself on? We didn't turn it on, because to turn a Halo on, you need a key, and that turns the sort of the Halo on. But nobody's turned it on. On this Halo, there is no control room, because all the Halo rooms have a control room to turn them on. There's none of that, and nobody accessed it and was able to do it. So you're trying to figure out as to why has this Halo array turned itself on, and why has the other Halos turned themselves on? Because who would have done that? So the UNSC and the Arbiter come together and it's like, look, we've got to figure out a way to turn these Halos off. For some reason, something's stopping us from turning them off. We can't turn them off from here. The only place that we can turn all the Halo rings off is the Ark. And that's the only place that we can go. So the Arbiter sends a group of elites, some of his best men, some of his best Sankhili fighters, to Earth, to Kenya, where the portal is, it's the portal that you go into in Halo 3 that takes you to the Ark. And the UNSC send two of their top scientists, a linguistics forerunner experts, another scientist, and Olympia Vale. She is another character as well. She is sent because she speaks Sankhili, and that she is there to basically broker peace between the two sort of races, between humans and Sankhelios, and try to make it a bit more peaceful and a bit sort of understanding and translating and that sort of thing. And they go there with a Horogok. So the Horogok is basically the engineers, for anybody that doesn't know. They were made by the Forerunners, and they were basically the repairmen. They can fix sort of things. The Covenant used them to advance their technology and to give them a cutting edge. But now the Covenant has been disbanded, there is only a few Horogok left, and the Arbiter basically gives us, humans, his Horogok, which is called Drifts Randomly. It's great. I love the names that the Horogoks give themselves. It's great. But Drifts Randomly, or Drifts, comes with the Sankhili and the humans to Kenya to basically figure out how to get the portal working, because at the end of Halo 3, once they all came back from the Ark, the portal shut down, and they've been trying for years now to get it back up and going. And Horogok basically having a talent for anything technological it puts its hands to, especially Forerunner technology, and they're hoping that the Horogok can open up the portal again. Because otherwise, if they don't use the portal, it's going to take too long to get to the Ark with the current technology that they've got. And by the time they get there, the Halos would have activated, and all sentient life in the galaxy would have been wiped out. And that's kind of the idea and the premise. As the story goes on, you meet sort of different characters. You meet characters like Annabella Richards, Spartan Kodiak, Spartan Holt. There are other characters like try to remember the names now. Henry Lamb, which is another one. Lutherman, which I find it funny whenever the Sankhili say Lutherman's name. It almost feels like they're kind of taking the piss or just explaining who he is. Luther. The man, the human. Even though that's his last name, I always made me giggle whenever time the Sankhili would be like, Luther the man, come here. It just felt like they was taking the mick. And then obviously the other Sankhili as well, like Kola, Entho, Ooze. Those are the two main ones, Entho and Ooze. They're the two main Sankhili in the story. But there's like a really cool sort of dynamic as well between Entho and Spartan Kodiak. The reason being is the fact of, and again, I don't want to go into major spoilers, but during the Covenant War, Kodiak lost his arm in battle. And he's wanted revenge for the elite that did it since that moment. And then it turns out in the story, and again, this is not a major spoiler because again, it's right at the beginning, but I don't want to get into any more detail than I'm going to say now. But it turns out that it was Entho that took his arm. And then from there, that sort of starts a bit of a rivalry between them and a kind of revenge that sort of Spartan Kodiak wants to get revenge on Entho for sort of taking his arm. And again, I'm not going to get into the story a bit more into that, but like there are different moments that sort of there are. I don't explain it without going spoilers. There are moments of confrontation, but the dialogue between them is absolutely brilliant because the elite the Sankili is very sort of I don't know how to explain it. He's very sort of solemn. He's very sort of warrior like. He's very honourable. Whereas Kodiak, he's very human. He's very full of emotion. So he's the one that's like, oh, so and so and so, you took my arm, and the Sankili was like, yeah, but it was in battle. Us Sankili, us elites, we wear our scars with pride. Why don't you wear yours with pride? And that sort of thing. And the dynamic is brilliant. As I mentioned as well with the story, it expands on the lore of the arc. And again, trying to stay away from spoilers as much as possible. So obviously, like I said, my initial thought was the fact that it was going to be sort of the Banished. Those were going to be the reason as to why the arc turned itself back on. And again, it turns out it was an AI. It was the monitor that was left on the arc to kind of monitor it, to watch it. It was a monitor that turned it back on. And after and it really links into the events of Halo 3. After the events of Halo 3, when the Covenant and the humans were fighting each other, a lot of damage happened to the Ark, as well as a new Halo ring that was being built was used and to activate to kill the Flood, but in doing so also damaged that ring as well. And the fact of the first Halo ring that in Halo Combat Evolved, the first Halo was damaged. Then the Halo ring in Halo 2, that was damaged as well. I think that one was destroyed, actually. I can't remember. Either way, the point is the fact of all these Halo rings are being destroyed. And again, we all know the reason as to why it was to stop it was to stop the Flood, basically, because the Flood was a lot worse than the Covenant. And eventually, by the end of Halo 3, you had the Prophets wanted to activate the Halo rings to wipe out humanity and all of a sentient life, but keep Covenant. And that was the idea behind it. And obviously the war trying to stop that, as well as, again, the battle that damaged 343 Guilty Spark and eventually destroyed Guilty Spark as well. And the events of that and what happened kind of set this AI to be like, look, the Flood are dangerous, but they're gone. The next biggest threat is sentient, is basically the sentient life, is the Covenant, it's humans, it's the thing Healy, and humans being at the forefront. He blames humans for it. So again, the idea and concept is it's kind of a trap at the same stage. It's the fact of, I want to rebuild Halo. And once I've rebuilt Halo, I'm going to use it to kill everything because you don't deserve to live. And you have this, like the dialogue between Olympia Vale and the AI, and it's very intellectual. It's very deep in concept. This idea of the AI is, because there's a thing in Halo, it's called rampancy, and the idea behind rampancy is the fact of an AI usually lasts about 7 to 8 years thereabouts, and after about 7 to 8 years it goes into rampancy. And what rampancy basically is, the long and short of it, is they think themselves to death. Is that they have so much process, and there's so much data, so much going on in their head, that they basically go mad, and they think themselves to death, and they die, really. But they go off the rail, really. They go off the chain, they go crazy. So when an AI gets to that point, they get shut down and scrubbed. And that's kind of how sort of human AI works. And in terms of the Forerunners, same sort of thing, because it happened with the monitors. With 343 Guilty Spark, when he was doing his Halo rings, and in the extended lore, he was getting bored, so he'd do experiments, and he was doing experiments on the Flood, and he would just there would be certain parts of the Halo installation where he would just turn the gravity off just for the fun of it, just to see what would happen, just to do something, and he would kill things, and he would experiment. And again, he ended up going crazy, and not all the monitors, but a lot of the monitors ended up just losing their minds because they were on their own, because all their job was to make sure the Halo ring stayed operable, stayed working, stayed activated. And for thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, being on their own for so long, they are going to go a bit crackers. And this monitor that runs the Ark, he basically loses his mind, and it deals real sort of deeply with the idea of being left on your own, of abandonment, really. That tragic solitude, that's the name of the AI. That's the name he gave himself, really, or herself. It's never really explained, but either way, it's that idea of, the Forerunners abandoned me, and I have a vindictive sort of hate to any sort of life at all, and that I finally found some peace, and then humans and Covenant come in and destroy that, and then they destroy all the Halo rings, all the things that I was meant to be looking after and protecting. You've destroyed them, and then you come to my home, the Ark, where I've basically been on my own, and you destroy it, and then you want me not to react. Like the AI, because again, AI works very logical. It's like I don't understand when they have these arguments. I'm like, I don't understand what you mean. I'm trying, like, you are the flood, you are the disease, the parasite, you are the big problem in this universe right now. I'm only doing what my program is to do, is to protect the installations, and the best way I can protect the installations is by turning them on and getting rid of you. But I also need to build other installations, so I'm going to send retrievers out, which are like giant mining robots. I'm going to send them out back through the portal, and I'm going to mine all of the resources on Earth, and then I'm going to mine the moon, and I'm going to do all the other planets in sort of the Sol system, which is the system that we all live in. And then I'm going to go do all the human colonies, and then I'm going to go further, and then I'm going to do the Sangheli. I'm going to take the Sanghelios, and I'm going to do all their planets and retrieve, and then I'm going to rebuild the Halo rings. And I'm going to wipe them all out. It's absolutely fascinating. It really, really is. And don't worry, like, I haven't gone into sort of any major spoilers. There's a lot of surprises and a lot more in this book. But I really appreciate it of just expanding that lore. Don't get me wrong, there were certain moments where I was sitting there and I was just like, hold on a second, where was this monitor during the events of Halo 3? Like, I would have assumed that this monitor and Guilty Spark, they would have had some sort of rapport, they would have had some dialogue together, or that. Maybe, again, the idea there was that originally for Halo 3, there was no plans for a monitor on the Ark, and that's why they never put one in. Or maybe there was and they scrapped it. I don't really know. So there's little things like that where my brain's like, oh, where was this monitor during the events of Halo 3 with the Battle of the Ark? But either way, it was interesting to kind of go through this story and to relive those moments. And so well described are these certain places in the Ark of, like, oh, I've been there. I battled Flood and Covenant in this area. And I remember going up that ramp and going into the control room, and I visually remember how it looked, obviously in the cutscenes in the game as well. One other thing that I really, really loved, and what I found while I was doing my research, was that the two main Sangheli, so you've got Enthone and you've got Ooze, right? As I was reading for the story, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I know these characters. I don't know where I know them from. I just feel like I recognize the names. I feel like I recognize these Sangheli, and I don't know where from. And I'm trying to sit there, I'm trying to think of, like, oh, did they appear in one of the games? Was there a ship captain in Halo 2 or Halo 3 or anything like that, or Halo Reach? Like, I'm trying to think, where did I see these Sangheli? And then it hit me as I was going deep into my research. And I love this. And this is one of the things that I do sort of appreciate from 343, is the fact of when they did their extended media in terms of the books, they did their research first. And I really appreciate it for that. And what I mean is the fact of, I knew these characters, and I knew I did, because if you ever played Halo 3 in 4-player co-op, right? So you'd have two characters. One, you'd play as Master Chief. The other person would play as the Arbiter. But you'd also have two extra elites with you. You'd have a blue one and a red one. Now, again, they easily could have went the fact of, oh, that's the blue elite, that's the red elite, and from there. But no, these elites actually had names and backstories. And those elites, the two sort of co-op elites that you'd play the campaign with, were Enthone and Ooze. And I knew it was. I knew I'd heard that. I knew I'd recognize it somewhere. And yeah, it turns out those are the two extra sort of co-op characters you get to play as if you play through Halo 3 as a co-op player. And I really love and appreciate that extra detail, because once I realized that, then it made sense. Those moments when I'm reading the book, and Entho and Uz, they're both explaining to the humans of like, oh, I remember when I was here. I remember fighting with the Arbiter. I remember fighting the Covenant and fighting the Flood to get to the control room. And I remember going here and doing this. And I'm like, I remember that. I was there. Yeah, I was there. And I remember, yeah, they were there. Because obviously, if you play in single player, you don't get that as well. You get the Arbiter. He runs around with you, but you don't. You mostly just play on your own as the obviously as Master Chief. But if you're playing 4-player co-op, which I did a lot when I was younger, you do get yourself Arbiter and the 2 extra elites behind you as well. And I just love the extra bit of detail, extra bit of lore of like, once you know, you can appreciate this story a whole lot more because you're like, oh, yeah, I remember them too. I didn't even know they had names, but they did. And they've got backstories. And it's wonderful. It is. And yeah, I just appreciate that. I do. I really do appreciate that extra bit of detail that that 3 for Free went into. It was like, look, we're going to have 2 extra elites for this story. They could be like new elites, but let's just let's extend the Halo 3 lore a bit more. You know, let's extend that a bit more, and then have 2 characters, the co-op characters that you'd play as 2 of the main sort of characters in the story. And for that, I loved it. I really loved it, and I really appreciate that. You know, so I just wanted to mention that, a little bit of trivia here. As for the sort of continuity, so as I was reading through the book, I'm trying to sit here and think of like where the continuity is, because obviously with the last book, that is kind of set shortly after the events of Halo 3, and I want to know where this story sort of takes place. So, Halo Hunters in the Dark. This takes place in the year 2555, more than 2 years after the Master Chief went missing on the Ark, during a period of sort of like really sort of struggle between peace between humanity and the elites. Obviously, again, because of like 30 years of blood and destruction and planets being destroyed, there's going to be a lot of contention and hate and revelry between the 2 sort of races. But we are trying to come together and be like a peaceful sort of race, especially with the Arbiter. He's trying to do peace between humans and the Senkieli. And so far it's going good, but again, the tensions are still quite high. And I thought to myself, okay, so if this takes place in 2555, Master Chief is still drifting in space. When does Halo 4 take place? So Halo 4 takes place in 2557, 4 years after the events of Halo 3, when Master Chief and Cortana face a new threat from the Covenant and uncover Forerunner secrets. So that's when Halo 4 takes place. That means we have 2 years to fill in terms of the books, and in terms of when Master Chief comes back. And that, for me, is quite exciting. Reason being is the fact of, because I have read I think that it's called Halo Extension or Halo Exhalation, I think it's called, which is a graphic novel sort of comic that came out around just before the sort of Halo 4 came out. And it basically explains how the UNSC Infinity was made using Forerunner technology. It's quite fascinating, interesting read. If you can find it, I recommend sitting down and giving it a read. So I know that takes place, and of course, one of the sort of Spartans that Master Chief meets in Halo 4. I can't remember her name now, but the woman anyway, she was in the last book. So we kind of find out where she is, as well as obviously the game Halo Spartan Assault. I think, I can't remember her name now. I really can't remember her name. It's blanking on me. I'm sure somebody's listening to this going, it's so and so. I'm like, yes, I'm sure it is, but I can't remember it at this point in time. But anyway, so we had her. She was announced, as well as, again, we know where Buck and where he's going in the story. So now we've got the next few books that kind of are going to fill in the gap between the years 2555 and sort of 2557. I think the next book actually takes place in 2553. So yeah, we're going back and forth, but we're filling in the gaps and things are starting to make a lot more sense. And I'm interested now because I also thought to myself, okay, if by the end of this story, and again, if you played Halo Wars 2, you kind of already know in terms of what happens at the beginning anyway. So I won't go into that just in case nobody knows. But at the end of this story, humans and Senghili basically decide that we need to protect the Halo rings and that we need to protect the Ark, so that they send forward operating fire bases out to the Ark to make sure that the Ark is safe and looked after and is secure, and that it's under protection of the UNSC and the Senghili, and that we're going to work together to not only understand it, but basically make sure that they never get activated ever again. That's the idea and that's the concept. And I thought to myself, okay, where does this take place? Like, where does this take place in terms of Halo Wars 2? Because again, you play for Halo Wars 2. Well, I'm not going to spoil it, but you know what happens on the Ark. And then I looked into it. So Halo Wars 2 takes place in the year 2559. So we've got some years before we get to there. This is 28 years after the events of Halo Wars and based shortly after the events of Halo 5 Guardians. So it's around that time period. So this is around, so 2559 is around the time period of Halo 5, and obviously the Master Chief and his new team, as well as sort of Spartan Lot going after him. And then I would imagine sometime after this, because I'm not sure actually when does Halo Infinite take place? Halo Infinite takes place in 2560. So yeah, we've got a bit of a way before we get there, but that's still 5 years, still a 5 year gap to kind of fill in to see where the story gets to with Halo sort of 5 and Halo Infinite, as well as catching up to Halo 4 with the Master Chief being back. So I'm excited. And I just wanted to take you on that bit of a journey just to kind of see the continuity of the timeline and see basically where we're going. But yeah, so overall thoughts, I enjoyed this one. I really, really did. It's how can I explain it without, again, this is a hard one to explain. This is why I struggled with doing the reviews when I planned to do the Gears of War books, because they're so full of lore and there's so much going on in these books. And again, these books they're not short, they're very long books, that it's hard to really go into detail about these stories, and it's really hard to explain anything without going into major spoilers. And already, believe it or not, the things I've said are not really spoilers at all. But there are things that I'm leaving out that are sort of spoilers. The best way I can explain this story, this book overall, is the fact of if you are sort of a Halo fan, if you are especially a fan of Halo 3, you will enjoy this book a lot more, because it expands upon the lore of not only the world, obviously, in the continuation, but it expands on the lore of the Halo rings, of the Forerunners, of like you get to meet the sort of constructs, the armatures, the sort of human hybrid sort of robots that the Forerunners have got, like the Knights and that sort of thing. You kind of get hints at them already in this story before that you actually get to be met, for like the Master Chief and the UNSC first properly gets to meet them in Halo 4. You know what I mean? So you get little references here and there that leads up to that, and very good world building, as well as you kind of get sort of a lot more knowledge about AIs and how AI work, and how the Forerunners built AIs and how the Forerunners and built the Ark and things like that. So in terms of the lore and that sort of thing, I think you'd get a kick out of it. But my overall sort of thoughts and feelings is I loved it for the lore and I appreciated it for that. But the thing that I take away the most and what I enjoyed the most from this book was, in all fairness, it was the dialogue. It was the dialogue between Entho and Kodiak and their, I say rivalry. It's a very one-sided rivalry, because Entho, he very much the fact of like, it's more the fact of like, it was a bit of an annoyance. It was the fact of like, I get it that what happened, and I'm sorry for it, but it's what happens in war at the end of the day. And he's trying to be peaceful, but Kodiak is very much the fact of, no, I want blood, I want an arm for an arm. And their differences and how they're trying to put things aside, but also be against each other at the same time. And then you've got Henry Lamb and Luferman, their relationship between the two scientists and two researchers, Forerunner experts, how their dynamic together. And then you've got the dynamic between Tragic Solitude, the sort of Ark's monitor, as well as Olympia Vale, the linguistics expert, when she's trying her best to diffuse the situation and try to understand as to why the monitor is doing what it's doing, and trying her best to stop it and trying to reason with an AI, with a supercomputer, basically. And even like the moments between the researchers and the Huragok is quite funny as well. So yeah, I think the strongest part of this story, and what made the story so gripping and so interesting, was just the dialogue between the characters. The lore was brilliant, and the set pieces were great as well. But it was just the dynamic between the characters, for me, is what really sold it. Is what kept me reading, was what was like, look, I really want to keep reading because the characters are so incredible. And like I said, especially the moments between Vale and the monitor was just top notch writing. So Peter David, for that, did a brilliant job, and I really can't fault it on the dialogue at all. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts and feelings on Hunters in the Dark. I think my next one. Oh, what is the next one? Actually, I don't know. Let me have a look. Actually, quickly, where is Goodreads? I did have it here. Here it is. So the next book I will be reading is Halo Saints Testimony. This is a short story by Frank O'Connor. It's only about 35 pages, so this one won't be a long review, but I have a feeling it will be a very deep one, because it is basically a story about the human AI constructs, like Cortana, that a military-grade artificial intelligence known as Lona has only 1 week to live, and that she basically tries to plead her case and as to why she should be kept alive, and even though that she's going through the corruption of rampancy. So that should be an interesting one. I don't know where it slots in with the law and when, but for a short story that deals with rampancy and AI, I'm all here for it. I find that very, very fascinating, and is also very poignant to today as well, where we're building sort of AI machines. And I remember, and I think like Jurassic Park, of like, you built it because you could, but nobody asked to see if you should. You know what I mean? I'm butchering the quote, but that sort of thing. And that's how I feel with AI at the moment. Is the fact of, yeah, we're doing it, it's brilliant, but nobody's asking to see, really, should we? So I'm looking forward to that one. It's only going to be a short one as well, so it shouldn't take me long to read it and get it out the way. And then after that, the next one is Halo Last Light by Troy Dennings, and that one is set in 2553. So we're going back a bit with that one, but I'm excited nonetheless to kind of see as to what characters introduced and what characters do I know of. Like, are any of them come up in the games that come forward, or are they linked into Halo Infinite at all? So I'm excited. I got my fingers crossed. But you're going to have to wait until then, because I've got other books I have to read. So it's going to be a while, possibly, till I get around to that one. But if I do this smart and cleverly, you won't know the difference. By the time that this gets released, I would hopefully have read the next Halo book, and that you won't be able to tell. So for me, it's a long way, but for you, it's only a short wait. So fingers crossed. Anyway, so thank you very much for listening to my review of Halo Hunters in the Dark. Hope you liked it and hope you enjoyed it. If you did, again, please do leave a comment down below, either on YouTube or Spotify. Make sure that you like the video on YouTube. And if you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. Also, you can follow me on X at Howdy Beans _pod, so that whenever I do get around to reading the next Halo novel, or finally getting around to Halo Infinite, which probably won't be for another year or two, we will see. Again, it depends on how long it takes me to read all the books. But still, when we get there, you will know, because you're following me on X. And so thank you much for listening. I've been your host, Luke the Spartan 626. You've been listening to the Howdy Beans podcast, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye bye.